Turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher.
And welcome back. I'm Mike with the Turntable Teachers. Class is officially back in session. We are back with another guest speaker episode via Zoom. And I'd love to introduce to you guys today a good friend of ours, Maeko. He is originally from Raynham and now lives in the Newton, Brighton area. And we are so excited to have him on the show today. Maeko, how are you today, my man?
Doing great. Yeah, thank you for having me.
I like your sound. I think it's super unique. You really have like a nice indie rap, but also kind of almost like you border on the line of like some neo soul and even some you're basically just bringing a lot of different kind of eclectic sounds in your music. So I was kind of just curious, like, first of all, like, where'd you kind of get the influences to do this type of hip hop? Even though this type of hip hop is pretty, I would say, getting more popular nowadays. But my question to you is kind of how did you sort of get into finding this sound for your music, and what kind of made you start to like want to create music in the first place?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like in the past I'd kind of like overthink this question, but it's gotten like clearer and clearer kind of why I sound like I sound and why I make the music I make. So I'd say it's kind of like, it's like a typical story as far as what my parents used to play. Like, it wasn't anything too left field. Like, my dad was definitely a music lover, like had the old Bose, like, speakers that like stood on the, little stands, and a great system that had like, I think it was like eight CDs on the turntable. So he was playing like a lot of Neil Young, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Then like, stuff like Earth, Wind and Fire, some Marvin Gaye, Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, wow. Huge Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah. Oh, love Fleetwood Mac. So when I started to think about it, like, I was oh, hell yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's beyond the classic. That's just like
unbelievable.
Yeah, and I like the collection you got behind us, by the way. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, like I said, I got a bunch more here. I got a bunch you just mentioned. I got Marvin Gaye, I got Fleetwood, Sinatra. I got over here as well.
Yeah.
Like I'm with you, man, because a lot of these guys were played in my household too. Like Earth, Wind and Fire was another one. Neil Young was played in my household. Elton John was a big one for sure too. So like I hear you with a lot of these artists. Yeah. And because my mom, she loved, like, she was a little more like, I guess, like passive in her music listening, but she liked music too. Like, I think she was more like James Taylor, like Diana Ross. And so it was kind of just I was always listening to music, but I didn't really have a clue that I was like really destined to make music for a long time. And then I kind of, where I was listening to a lot of stuff, sort of, not by my choice, although I enjoyed most of it. I got pretty like from fifth grade, like through middle school, I got like really obsessive with like just Lil Wayne. I was like mixtape era. Like, I just remember one summer I found mixtape Wayne, Drought 3, Dedication 2, and it was just all I played. And that's like, I think a lot of people say this too. It's like Wayne was what kind of made them love hip hop, and then I dove, deeper, of course, like into older hip hop and Tribe Called Quest and all different stuff. Lauryn Hill. I kind of I've always gravitated towards writers. Like, I love Neil Young for that reason. I think he's one of the greatest writers ever. Um, I think, Kendrick, of course, love Kendrick. And then, so that was sort of the influence. And it's funny, fast forward current day, I'm kind of listening to, I kind of have gone a totally different direction as I've started to make music. So it's funny how that goes, but yeah.
That's cool though. Cause like, so it's so funny you say about Wayne, like, I think everyone that was our age in that middle school era, like you're saying, so you're talking probably anywhere between 2005 and 2009, roughly, right? With
Uh,
Wayne, right?
the best run ever.
Yeah, he really did, man. Like I would say from the Carter 1 with all those mixtapes in between to the Carter 3,
Yeah,
that was
crazy.
like, I agree, maybe one of the best runs in hip hop history, potentially. I actually remember being in 8th grade, going on away to a DC trip. We did like the DC trip every year or whatever. And when I was in 8th grade, we went, and I remember the morning I woke up at 4:30 in the morning to download the Carter 3 to make sure I had it on my little.
The world.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, man. Like, set the alarm for 4:30, made sure I had the Carter 3 on my little MP player that I had, or maybe even like iPod at that point, I don't even know, and made sure I had it on for the drive down there, because we took like one of those big buses. And
That's so,
bro, listen to it the entire way down, the whole 10-hour ride. I was like just repeating the Carter 3, and I wasn't alone. Like, all my friends the same way,
I've heard that there was another version of the Carter 3. I think actually some of it randomly leaked like on Twitter about a few months ago, and that version's crazy too. But I think it all obviously happened how it should have, because that's one of the best-selling hip hop records of all time. Like,
yeah, that's a classic. And it's just funny, like, how some music like that takes you back to those moments. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely liked the Carter's 1 and 2. I probably more so 2 than 1, in my opinion. I liked 1, but for me, it was always 3, 2, 1 for me, just personally, like in that row. I don't even count 4 and 5 in that. Yeah,
basketball game or whatever it is, like pump up music. Yeah,
absolutely, man. I mean, like 5 and 4 definitely had their moments, but they weren't like, in my opinion, they weren't like full fledged, like, front to back projects.
Yeah.
First 3
The
were.
thing is, though, like, I will, I do not tolerate well the Wayne slander from, I think most people are pretty much like, no, he's a GOAT. But there's, a few people who are like, oh, he hasn't made a good album and so on. And like, I'm with you on 4 and 5, like, and maybe I kind of just grew out of like some of the stuff he is rapping about or whatever it is. But still though, I'm like, till the day I die, I'll be like, Wayne is one of the greatest ever.
Well, yeah, you can say that about. It's actually fun. I don't know if you've seen on the social media, like T.I. versus 50 Cent right now. That's like going around. I don't know if you've seen
that.
Yeah. They're kind of, they're not beefing, but they're kind of going back at it, like they're basically trying to say, like, who has like the best discography, essentially, like whose shit's better. And
that's interesting.
It's funny because all those guys, I don't feel like they're obviously, like, they're not really that relevant anymore, like in terms of their music. Like 50's still a relevant person, like in in the media and in mainstream media and
power and all that.
Obviously, right, having power and things like that. But in terms of music, like, I don't really see 50. I know he like executive produced that new Pop Smoke record, which is pretty decent.
It is.
I don't know though. Same with T.I. Like, but in terms of like, they're rap moguls. I mean, obviously, then T.I. was on Rhythm and Flow on the Netflix special that was on. So they're still, and then Wayne obviously still has his his Young Money Radio that's kind of getting big right now, and as podcasts.
Yeah, I like that. I don't know. I would have to sit and think about the T.I. 51. I just know personally, I grew up listening to more 50 Cent, I think. But I remember hearing, I was at a basketball game in forget where exactly, but I remember like clear as day at halftime they played Rubber Band Man by T.I., and I was just like, ooh, his song is something else. This beat is crazy. Like, now that was one of my early, like, I mean, I must have been in third grade, so that was like, you know, I wasn't listening to like too much rap before then.
Right. No, and yeah, Rubber Band Man was off what was that trap music album that he put out in 2003. Yeah,
Yeah.
so all right, so tit for tat, you're going 50 versus T.I., you're leaning towards 50 on that one?
Yeah, but you know, I don't have too much clout in this because like it's not like I've combed through both of their discographies, but you know, just like from what I went through, like, you know, I like when I found Power of the Dollar by 50, which was like before he, like, you know, his jaw got messed up or whatever that was before he got shot and stuff. I was shocked back in the day when I heard that. Like, he just sounded so much younger and so much different when he rapped, but he's been rapping for a long, long time. Like,
Sure. Having said that, for me personally, I think T.I. has the stronger discography in terms of like his catalog, but
yeah,
I think 50 has the best album out of both of them. I think Get Rich is the best album, personally.
yeah. I mean, for sure. That's like hard to even debate, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
When Get Rich came out, dude, like I
Oh
feel like
my God.
that's what everybody was. It's kind of the same thing with Carter 3. Like everyone was
Yeah.
on that album. Like you couldn't find anybody that wasn't listening to that album. And we were young when that shit came out. I remember like begging my parents like to get it.
Oh
And
yeah.
they were like,
Yeah.
the edited version. So I ended up getting the edited version. But it's so funny. Like years later,
Yeah.
I listened to it like for the first time again because it was like, you know, I got the explicit version a few years later.
Yeah, no, that's fun. I remember my friend got Encore, I think, by Eminem.
Yeah.
And like he like snuck out of the store with the unedited version. The parents didn't realize, and like they did realize, and they were like, "Yo, we got to go back and get the edited version." It was
All right, so you were in the same boat as me. I mean, we were young though back then, dude. Like that, like if you're, I mean, you're around the same age as me. So like, you know, in terms of during then, I mean, yeah, like I said, we were probably third or fourth grade when those albums, fifth grade.
wow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I think it's super kind of going back to some of the stuff you were saying a little earlier about some of your influences. I hear, you know, especially with your new EP, Good Grief, that just dropped, which I want to talk about next for sure. But I guess this is a good segue. But I love how you actually, you know, there are some, you can really hear those Fleetwood Mac, Neil Young, like though I can really hear that influence in your music. And now like hearing you talk about this now, it actually makes a ton of sense kind of digging back into it, that you kind of were able to bring in those more, like I said, soul driven, soft rock, indie, alternative, like all those kind of different mix in with the hip hop that you create. So
now, like, I definitely, you know, when there's a album up by artists, I'm still pressing play and like have certain things in rotation. But I've just been playing like on Spotify the state of jazz playlist.
okay,
Just like straight through. Like, I don't know what it is. Like sometimes when I'm trying to write and like, it doesn't necessarily always help to hear new flows from other people. Like sometimes it can be inspiring, but sometimes it's just too much when like I need to come up with something unique and kind of try to outdo myself. So I'll just like, you know, flip it over to like jazz sometimes, or even just a total different like genre that I just feel I'm not really in the same bubble as. And so yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at lately with you know, at least what I'm listening to and whatnot.
no, I think that's definitely something that I don't think you're alone in that necessarily. Like even someone like me, like obviously I'm not an artist, but you know, with what a lot of the things that I do, like if I'm like, you know, if I'm doing like curriculum work or I'm like grading papers or I'm doing something like that, I like listening to like instrumental lo-fi hip hop or jazz. Like I love that shit. I actually feel like with you, like the lyrics can get in the way a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Of like what you're trying to do. I feel like you can kind of immerse yourself in that instrumentation and kind
For
of,
sure.
you know, and kind of So that's a really cool like technique that you've used. So do you find that helps with your writing process? Like listening to that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, and I've done a lot of like trial and error on my writing process, because if you were to say like right now, like, oh, we'll throw in a beat like and write something in your living room, like it would 9 times out of 10 kind of just be trash. And but I think I've kind of started to crack the code recently, where it's like there's a part, I don't really know the psychology, but I definitely think there's a part of your brain that does well, or mine at least, that does well being somewhat distracted or focused on something else. Like, how some people say they'll, have thoughts in the shower. For me, like I wrote my whole last album, Dead Center, looking around, driving, like on my commute. And not wrote it, but I would, like, if I had an idea, I would like record it and come back home, write it out. And when I'm at the studio lately, I'll just like throw up a tennis ball and be like thinking of stuff as I do it. So that's been a weird like little development too, but it's helping me. Like I really look at it as like it's such a game, and it's such a there's just a code to crack. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's never ending.
Yeah, there doesn't seem like, I think with these processes with artists, I've come to find like with enough artists I've talked to, there's no really like rhyme or reason to it. And I don't think that, and then I think your process can certainly change, right? I mean, you're setting, like, I think a lot of factors play into it. I think like maybe what you're going through during that particular time in your life, I think that plays a factor. I think setting for sure plays a factor. You know what I mean? And then you're like all the things you're saying too, like, kind of utilizing some other, mundane tasks that you might not think about. Like, I know like you're like, I agree with you. There's a lot of people that say, I think of my best things in the shower. I even feel that way for sure too. But yeah, like just like I said, small mundane things like you're saying, like driving and throwing a tennis ball in the air, or just kind of sitting and listening to some jazz. Like that
Right.
kind of makes the wheels turn a little bit and gets it kind of flowing a little. Yeah.
For sure. It gets the chatter brain kind of out of the way for whatever, needs to move in. So yeah.
I kind of have a couple questions about the Good Grief EP. Obviously,
Sure.
very rooted in this indie hip hop scene that I think sprouting. I think there's a lot of good indie hip hop out there right now. I think at the forefront of it in Boston, I think you're one of the names that people really should be looking into if they like indie hip hop. But in terms of course, but in terms of the EP itself, so talk to me a little bit about the process kind of creating that, because I know there's a little bit of like almost I don't should say a story, but there's kind of a storyline in itself, or like each song kind of blends into one another as almost like feelings in a way. So talk to me a little bit about the process of creating this EP, and also kind of the reception that you've got from it.
So I went from my album Dead Center, looking around, in 2018. I was like, oh, I'm gonna make an epic, like, I think I was in that romantic state of mind of like, I need like a my Good Kid, Mad City, and here I am with no fans. Like it was lofty. I'm glad I did it, but it was very lofty, and it was a whole like sonic journey. It was basically, the metaphor was the hive. Like I got real obsessed with honeybees for whatever reason, and it was a journey from outside of the hive, flying to the dead center, dead center, looking around, and flying out, and kind of the emotional journey, of what I was going through, like painted through that lens. And it was, I think it's 15 songs, whole ass LP, and it took, a year. I was in the studio a ton, and then things change, things grow. I dropped some singles. I was in a band called Winona and the Riders for a while, but fast forward Good Grief, and it all happened in 3 days. So I went out to, so really the album is centered around loss of all different sorts. So, you know, I had a pretty tough 2018, late 2018, 2019, that, you know, and you'll hear some of it in the album, but lost a couple family members. I lost my grandpa, and then in September I lost my dad. And you know, had a couple other tough things, like the band kind of stopped playing. You know, relationship ended. I got my appendix out. It was just like one thing after the other, after the other. And it knocked me out for a while, like, and I wasn't even really focused on music. I was just trying to like stop spinning. But then when my dad passed, that was a different type, you know, all those other things tough, but that was just a whole different magnitude as far as loss goes. And of course, you do all the things you need to do, support your family, whatever, you know, not trying to dive too deep into that, but I say all that to say, eventually, or very quickly, actually, I was like, I gotta make something. I'm gonna explode. Like,
Right.
it was the only, and that's when I knew, you know, like, and it took me a little bit to realize this, but that's when I knew this is more than like a hobby to me. This is more than like blowing up or whatever it is. This is like literally when artists say like, oh, it's like therapy to me, like, you know, therapy is one thing and it's good, but this is like therapy for the like abstract, almost, like it's for what you can't say out loud to a therapist. I rhyme it, and I've expressed myself better in rhymes, I think, through, like, I have a line I think that's like, I wish I'd spoken rhymes, like, because I just feel like I articulate myself better that way. But anyway, kind of just going on a rant, but Good Grief was, I flew out to California, and my buddy Dave, who is behind all my music, incredible producer, Dave Chapman, he was in Brighton, moved out to LA, Santa Monica, runs a studio there. And I was like, look, man, I gotta come out. We gotta make something. And I flew out in October, 3 weeks after all this happened. And he was just like, look, man, if we sit here and just chill and talk for 4 days, whatever it was, that's cool. If we make a million songs, that's cool too. Let's just like do what you want to do. And you know, it's a tough time. And I was like, all right. And you know, from there we made it happen. And I was, you know, I said quite a few prayers that something good would come of it, because I wanted to honor my dad.
Man, so first of all, thank you for sharing all of that with us today, and
Sure.
all of our listeners and all your fans too, that probably can hear a little bit of that pain in your music, but maybe didn't know the whole backstory behind it potentially. And obviously, like, you
Yeah.
know, my deepest condolences to you and your family. And, you know, it sounds like your dad was, you know, somebody that was special and definitely had a lot of really great, yeah, really had a great impact on you.
Yeah. He, you know, he was definitely at almost every show. And he'd always say like, you know, like Maddie, I think you gotta, he's like, these are good. These are some good songs, good melodies, good rhymes. He's like, I think you gotta pick up a guitar though, man. Like, I really think you gotta. And so I'm like learning guitar right now. I'm not ready to bring it on the stage, but I'm getting there.
Well, your music though, that would be sweet. I haven't seen a ton of that, like somebody rapping while also playing guitar. That could be a very unique thing that maybe not a lot of people do.
For sure. Yeah. I'm the plan is hatching in my head, but it's taking a little longer. I wasn't as much of a natural with guitar as, like, I feel like writing came easy to me, and just kind of it never, like, you know, I always worked to get better, like, but off the bat I feel like I was already at like a certain level where I felt confident. But with guitar, it's like, oh, this isn't it yet.
But you seem to obviously have that background with music. Definitely have a great ear for melody, a great ear for like instrumentation and different kind of blends of it. So I think that with due time, I think it's going to come. And obviously, I think it sounds to me like you're super motivated to do it, right? For a lot of reasons, not only for yourself, but for your pops. And I think that
Yep.
that's amazing. Really, it is. And, you know,
Thank you.
it's one of those things that I always find with music in particular. This happens with music. I mean, you can use it in a bunch of different other like creative outlets. I think that when you go through something like in something as significant and as difficult as you did, I think that's the pain really is what brings out the best music in a lot of these. I think in a lot of cases, I think that is the truth.
It's a tough truth because, you know, then there's a line where it starts to get romanticized, or you know, I think it can be tragic in some cases where like artists feel like they need, or, you know, I think it's a touchy subject, but like I think in certain instances artists feel like they need to be a tortured soul to make that music. But, you know, when you are dealt the cards, like there was no stopping that last year, it happened. And so I'm with you there that like you might as well take it, and those are intense, strong emotions no matter what. So once you put them into music, majority of the time, like you said, it's gonna be something special.
Yeah, something beautiful can come from that pain. And I think that's so. It's kind of funny you mentioned that too, because there's this author that I really like a lot. Her name is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I'm not sure if you're like into literature or books or anything like that, but
I don't think I know.
so she's an author. She's a Nigerian author, and she has this TED Talk called "The Danger of the Single Story." And essentially, in it, she claims, you know, a lot of writers in particular too, you know, the kind of the saying is, you know, you had to, you know, go through some shit. She doesn't say it this way, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially you have to go through some shit in order to like be a good writer or be a good musician or whatever the case. And so she says, like, I used to try to think of like horrible things that my parents used to do to me, right? Or that in order to kind of get in that headspace. But the truth is, like, I from a loving household, and like I didn't really have a lot of this. You know, we claim that we're these like to make it big, or to like, you know, be a major label like that, or a big movie producer, or it's supposed to come from some kind of pain. I mean, it can, and I think a lot of beautiful things do, but it doesn't have to. You know? But it's
no. I've been like diving deeper into my meditation practice and doing like a course called The Power of Awareness. It's with Tara Brach and Jack Cornfield, both like kind of the Buddhist meditation teachers. And that course is kind of convincing me that there's like a lot of beauty to come from joy, you know, and that translates to music too. It just kind of so happens that like I wouldn't say my stuff is sad, because I always try to paint it with hope. Like hope needs to be weaved into all of my projects, because I feel a lot of hope, like, and I think that's something, you know, maybe internal and something my parents instilled in me too. But so I try to keep it as real as I can with the hardships and the trauma and the pain and the hurt. But like, as long as that thread of hope runs through it, then I know it's not a downer to people. And that's kind of like where, you know, that's where I feel like my space sort of is right now, at least. Yeah.
Well, I think even sonically, right, in the way in which, like I said, the instrumentation, it matches exactly what you're saying, right? Like the song, they have a depressing, some of them have a depressing kind of connotation or sound to them, but they're always, there is a glimmer of hope within them as well, right? Like certain, like some songs that you have, even with Raspberry, you know, I feel the way you're singing it and the way you're rapping it, there's really a ton of pain in there, but that high-pitched guitar chord that you use in that. I think even though you could
True.
be it as potentially something a little bit like sad, I actually agree with you. I think there's a glimmer of hope in that kind of thing, because it kind of is a little on the lighter side, right? So
Yeah, and to me, there's got to be, because trust me, there's a time for sad ass like, you know, Conor Oberst or whatever, and then there's whatever. Maybe some days you throw on like Happy by Pharrell. I don't know, but
exactly.
I kind of land right in the middle there. So that's always like felt good for me too, because it feels like it's the best of both worlds. Like I want to like tell people that life is real, and that we like life can be suffering. It doesn't mean life is only suffering, but it's like there is suffering, and then at the same time, like, but you know, you go through it and you go through it, grow through it, and it is what it is.
Yeah, you want to like take that, you want to take the suffering and make it almost like a teachable moment, and something like say, hey, like you can have these moments, but it's really about what you do with them after the fact, right? Like once you, because I think when in terms of, you know, there is not to, you know, not to kind of be punny with this, but there is a stage of grief that everybody has to go through when they have, you know, something horrible happened to them, and like obviously an example, someone like, you know, like your father passing, like that. There's different stages of that grief, and like one of the stages, of course, has to be like allowing yourself to feel and bask in that sadness and those feelings. Exactly, because then it makes it so much more difficult to accept it and then use it as kind of some kind of tool for hope, right? Because if you're kind of still rooted in that sadness, you're never gonna get out of that, and you can never push it out to anybody else to see what they're going
Exactly.
through. So
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the stages too, because this wasn't something I think I made like a post about it, and but I didn't go too deep on it. So there's there's a model called the Kubler-Ross model. That's you know, some people say it's 5, some say 6, some say 7, but I went with like the 5 stages of grief. So there's like anger, acceptance, denial, and each of the songs loosely lines up with one of those stages. So for the people who want to deep dive, and for the people who are really maybe really going through grief in the thick of it, the goal was for them to be like, all right, like, you know, I'm angry, I'm throwing on this track, and kind of like I wanted to dive deep into like what grief actually is,
right.
and, you know, not just level it, try to really like understand like what's going on when it happens.
Sure. And I actually kind of, in a sense, kind of like that you called it good grief, because you're essentially kind of the play on words there. Is I know that's kind of a saying like, oh, good grief, right? But like in a sense, though, you're highlighting from the start, hey man, like, you know, grief is can be seen as a negative thing, but these stages kind of help you get out of grief, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like these different stages.
Yeah.
So
I actually like when, you know, people kind of come up with their own thing, but I think Weep was it, like, because at the end of Weep, I'm basically saying like, just cry, like, just you know, you can be in public at a coffee shop and just cry. And so it was kind of me being like, this is happening, man. It's not, I can't block it out.
yeah,
Yeah.
for men especially, right? There's this kind of, especially in hip hop, I think there's this, you know, this masculinity complex that I think we're getting out of it in terms of not only society, but the hip hop culture. Because for so long,
Yeah.
hip hop was kind of a tough man's game.
Right.
I'm not to paint the whole hip hop culture in that broad stroke, but I think a lot of the stuff that was coming out in the forefront, I mean, especially in the 90s, it was more of that like gritty, tougher side of things,
Yeah.
right? But
Oh, yeah.
I think now, especially in 2020, and even the last 10 years, the last decade, there's been a lot of hip hop artists that are, and especially men, that are getting really in touch with, you know, their emotions. And
Yeah.
I think as men, you know, or just really not even as men, but just as people to accept, like, just understand, hey, man, like, it's okay to cry.
Right.
Man, like, it was one of those, I always had one of those weird complexes myself where it was like, you know, oh, like, I can't cry, I can't show it. But now I'm just more or less like, I don't like cry all the time, but it's like, hey, if I feel it, like, I'm just gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it, right? I'm not lesser of a person because I cried. You know what I'm saying? Like, it means I'm feeling and I'm growing from that
Yeah.
experience.
You know, certain cultures see it as, it's funny how it just really depends on where you're from and how you grew up. But like, I think certain indigenous cultures see it as like one of the strongest and most healing things you can do. And they like literally see tears as like this sacred thing because it's the most healing expression. But yeah, like I've never been too concerned with all that. And I think, you know, it probably helps, I guess, with my music, because I've always been an open book. I want you to know what I'm feeling, because beyond it being therapeutic, there's something where if you're looking at somebody and they're expressing themselves freely, it's a mirror for you, and in some way or another, it's usually going to inspire you or move you from, you know, maybe you're a total closed book and you see someone on stage and they just rip it and they just, you know, don't give a shit, and they say they speak from their heart. That might just move you up a peg. You know, maybe you don't become that person on stage, but you start to think like, why am I so closed off? And, you know, so I think it's just like we can all help each other in that.
No, I agree. I think that there's a lot of value in what you just said. And I too also kind of see it as I always feel like I connect most with the artists that are real, right? And like honest, and like that have something important to say. And like those are the artists I feel like I tend to gravitate towards a little bit more. So I feel like with your fans, it's just one of those things where I feel like, you know, they will kind of get you more. And I think you keep fans a lot longer, in my opinion. I think you're getting more long lasting fans rather than just kind of like more like clickbaits, or like, you know, people that'll just single, or like, oh yeah, this is a hot song, like I dig this, I can bump this in the car with my friends. But you know, how many songs come out like that every year? You're kind of filtering through those tracks. There's definitely music that kind of stays with you. And I mean, that's obviously one of the reasons why I want to have you on, because with me personally, I know a lot of guys on the team and really love your stuff, but also just for me personally though, the EP certainly connected with me and it hit me, and I understood kind of where you were going with it. And that's why, like, just congratulations on the project, because I think it's brilliant. And I think anybody that hasn't listened to it yet, and obviously has been listening to this, you know, this episode, like after the episode, definitely go check out the EP, because it's something special. I think you have something really great there, and I think I feel like your dad's super proud, man. I would definitely would believe that hardcore. So
Yeah, that means a lot. I think you hit it head on. Like, you know, you might get a super fan instead of, you know, 100 fair weather fans. But to me, like, what's really kept me doing it as long as I have, which isn't that long, but you know, long enough, is the messages I get, you know, maybe 10, 20, 30 throughout the last couple of years that are like really, really heartfelt. Like, hey, you helped move me through this. Sometimes, you know, something seemingly small, but sometimes something major. And I always seem to get those messages at the right time. And, you know, I just try to get one fan a day.
Yeah, there's this book that one of our guys on our team, one of our marketing guys, he's turned on me for years now. It's I think it's called like 1,000 True Fans.
1,000, yeah, super fans, yeah.
Yeah, and
that's amazing.
Yeah, you can essentially, you know, create a business or like a brand or whatever, like whether you're an artist, whatever, like as long as you have 1,000 true fans that will kind of ride or die with you, then you can make an honest living that way. And like, there's a lot more like, because I think that's super important. I feel like a lot of artists I've talked to lately too, it's like they're missing doing shows because that's where I feel like they feel like they connect with a lot of people and fans that way. And I agree, man. Like I miss going to shows, and like on the opposite side, I actually miss going to shows and meeting artists. Like, you know what I'm saying? And getting to talk to them. So
definitely. I miss big time, and it's too bad about Great Scott. And yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see what Boston looks like when everything gets back together. But I hope more venues open up, or just more creative ways to play. Yeah, it's funny. There's a band called Edie Bloom. I don't know if you ever heard of them. They left. So they left Boston. It's actually my friend Dave is he plays guitar and bass in the band, and Ed is just this amazing front man, and their shows are like, you have to see one of their shows to understand. Like, he is dancing the entire show, energy through the roof the entire show, singing obviously as well. And they were just saying like the same thing, like, yeah, dude, we made a lot of fans through these shows. Our records are good. Obviously we believe in our records, but these shows were like something else for us. And so it's cool how people are getting creative. Like Ed in the band made a puppet. Like it's like a clay puppet, and someone made it for them, sent it to them, and they're doing like stop motion animation. And he actually went like pretty viral on Twitter off of it. They want to raise money, do stuff with it. But anyway, just saying that to say, like, people are gonna have to get creative in new ways that, like, I don't think I'm quite there yet. I'm still thinking through it, but it's a different time.
Same with us too. It's like we're actually gearing to do an event like right before the whole quarantine. Early, we were kind of starting to like consider doing one, and now it's like one of those things like we don't know when we're going to do it. But my biggest worry though is actually for the venues. That's my biggest concern. Like, a lot of them keep their doors open. We're looking at right now, basically a lot of these venues they're saying not allowed to open until there's a vaccine. So like when is that going to be? When that does happen, what does that look like? And how are some of these venues going to stay alive? Like some of the smaller ones that we really hold near and dear to us, you know what I'm saying? Like the Middle Easts and like the Paradise Rock Clubs, like those types of venues, I just hope that they make it. And it's a little scary, dude, honestly. Like, and these are people's livelihood at stake, like, and really like I feel like a place for artists and just fans to kind of not only connect but wind down and enjoy and have fun. And there's gonna be a transition, unfortunately, and it's sad, it really is.
Yeah. Talk about grief,
Yeah.
Yeah, things are changing. But yeah.
No, there's definitely a lot of things going on. But favorite song from Good Grief for your person?
Yes.
Your favorite song?
I heard that question, and then we got off on a
don't worry about
tangent. But so as of today, my favorite song off of Good Grief is Olive Pit. When I think about trying to get the purest essence like out of me of what I'm feeling, with no filter of like ego or any of kind of like the lower emotions, that is it. Like, I wrote some of it on the plane on the way out to LA, and then I just like spilled the rest of it out, and it was the first or second song we made. And I'm just really telling you how I feel, and really telling you how unfair I think the shit is, and really just being raw, and like how I was doubting God, and how I, was really in the thick of it. So, and just beyond all that deep stuff, the drums on it are just like insane.
Drums are dope.
So
I dig that instrument. Yeah. Those are my two favorites actually too. Would be like obviously I've said it a million one times. So, but yeah, Raspberry and all of that. Those are definitely my two favorites on the EP as well. But the whole thing is unbelievable. So and I really urge everybody else to go listen to it.
yeah.
So you kind of mentioned that you do like, you know, you're into meditation and things like that and kind of mindfulness and spirituality.
Yeah.
I also kind of noticed just from like your Instagram and even your music videos, a lot of just kind of who you are. I feel like nature kind of plays a factor in it in a sense. And I feel like a lot of your music really would, to be honest with you, like if I was in nature, your music would be, you know, what I would personally want to go to. And just coming
Oh, sweet.
I was coming from somebody personally who I really enjoy hiking. I like being out in nature. I love the beach, but especially like the woods are where I kind of feel like sometimes for me, it allows for me to, I feel like a lot of people feel this way that like camping and like hiking. I kind of get the sense you do.
Yeah.
I don't want to kind of assume that,
Definitely.
you know, for me, it's really a therapeutic thing because
Mhm.
I always feel like after I get out of the woods,
Yeah.
after a long hike or a couple of days camping and hiking, like I just feel so rejuvenated. So I want to know, I want to kind of hear on your end if that, you know, for me, I know it's therapeutic and helps clear my mind and things like that. I even my half sleeve is actually kind of dedicated to that as well. That of tattoos that I have because yeah, I love
Yeah.
nature that much, but you know, and obviously like during the quarantine and things like that, and you know everything that's going on in the world, I was just to get away. I would be just going up to New Hampshire, just doing a quick trail run for a couple
Yep.
hours, just to kind of get my mind kind of right. So, for you, like, is nature something that kind of fits in that mold with the mindfulness and the meditation and all that, or is that something that is kind of rooted there?
Yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head. So I've been into um, when I went to college, I just had a you know, it was a great time at UMass, of course, but I just went through a tough little transition senior year to freshman year where my anxiety really started to hit where like mental health kind of became a thing for the first time. Like when you know when you're in like a comfy bubble, you grow up in the same hometown, you know, not a whole lot of adversity. It's like there's a certain level of just like comfortability, I guess. And when I went to UMass, it's not like I went too far, but you know, something about it was just like, whoa, geez. And so immediately I gravitated toward Buddhism, meditation. Like I just saw a sign for a meditation class. I was like, gotta try something, man. I feel like I'm going nuts. So that part's always been there since, you know, 18 years old. But I I owe it all to my cousin Chip, who's like one of my best friends. When I say an olive pit, like Mid-State Trail, I'm there with Chip because nature only brings us gifts. He, you know, I would go on hikes throughout college a little bit, like, and I liked it. I always enjoyed it. But he was the one that pushed me, like, he was like, you will heal, like, if you go out in nature, like, at the very least, you'll come out feeling a little bit better than when you came in. And nature is like the only place that you can leave everything there and it doesn't ask anything from you. And, you know, sometimes I wish it did ask of us because of how humans are kind of are treating it. I think we can all like improve there, but anyway, so I think, you know, I started really at the Mid-State Trail, which is like near, it's in Winchester. It's like, it's near Wachusett. It actually like runs through Wachusett, certain parts of it. And it's like just such a beautiful trail. The part me and my cousin would do is like 5-7 miles of like hilly, but not like steep elevations. And we'd just walk, you know, start at 8 a.m., finish at 12, 1, whatever it was. And I got addicted pretty quick. It calms your nervous system. And then I got into the things like there's something called Shinrin Yoku, which is like, it's Japanese. It translates from Japanese into English as like forest bathing.
Okay.
So yeah, they have a real they've got it down to a science of like what it does to your blood pressure, your cortisol, your longevity, just everything good that really can happen. Nature makes it, enhances it. So I'm sold on nature for sure, man.
I believe that like wholeheartedly what you're saying. And it's funny you
Yeah.
like somebody else got you into it, because same thing with me. Like it's so kind of funny, like how our stories kind of mirror a little bit, because I had the same issue, like grow up the same bubble, right? Like North Shore, Massachusetts, right? Suburban neighborhood. Not going to sit here and say I didn't go through my hardships, when I was a child and things like that, but because I did, but I think a lot of the anxiety, same with you,
Mm.
it didn't really hit me a ton until I went to college. And then, that first year, that transition, same with me, man. Like, I put on weight. I was depressed. I was anxious all the time. Like I couldn't feel like I couldn't find myself and truly what I wanted. And it wasn't until, I kind of started going through some therapy, and one of my therapists suggested it. He's like, why don't you start going on in nature and hiking? And I'm like, I don't know. It just never seemed like it was for me. And then I started teaching. I met a friend of mine, Eric, one of my very good friends, who actually is on the team with us. He's a blog writer for us, has his own podcast, the TNC podcast teaching. Definitely everybody check that out.
Oh, for sure.
Plug. But anyway, he was the one that like got me into really like the big hikes. I'm talking like going into the White Mountains, and not only, he was the one that would be like, hey man, like you want to go do a hike? And the first time I remember him asking me, I was a little unsure of it. He's like, come on, like you're an athlete, like you can do it. And then I always thought about it too. Like, I was only I think I was 22 when I first did my first big one. This was probably 4 years ago. And it was hard. It was I would have to say it was one of the most difficult things I've ever done. And it was one of the White Mountains. I can't remember which one. I want to say we did Lafayette though. That was the one we just went up Lafayette and then right back down. So it was just a day hike. And but it was amazing. And I remember like my whole body ached, right? And like, but I remember home, I just felt body, mind, and soul. I felt so like almost the weight was gone in a sense. Yeah, like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I just felt so much better. And for the next couple of days after that, I was like, oh, my anxiety's like really low right now. This is really amazing. And then, every year we would do, a couple small ones, but then every year right before the school year started, we would do like a big one. We'd do like a full day one. And then last year we did the whole Penny Loop up in the White Mountains. So we did like Lafayette, Flume, Garfield, all those. And, I did like my first like camp, over camping. And so I got all the equipment. And I remember we were on the top of Garfield at a campsite, staying in lean. But I remember just going out to this big rock that was at the very beginning of the campsite and watching the sunset, after a whole day of getting up there, and, watching the sun just kind of go, set behind the trees, just kind of be one with that. Right. Yeah. See the beauty of that. And then the starry night, and just kind of like being one with that, and kind of realizing like how small you really are. And like, even though you feel anxious, it's almost like you feel you almost, because I think we get so wrapped up in our own worlds. Do you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like we think we're the center, because we are the center of our own world, but we think that like everything that happens.
You're talking the guy who wrote Dead Center Looking Around.
There you go.
So a little bit centered there in the title.
It all comes full circle. But, it's crazy. Like you think that your whole life, that you're the most important thing, and and it's not. And then I'm not saying that's wrong of anybody to feel that way. It's just kind of human nature. But when you into that kind of situation, when you get into nature like that, and you kind of realize like, wow, I am just a being of this grand thing, and it's hard to explain. I don't know if I'm even explaining this the right way. Long story short, it's so at ease, I think, and that's what it's been a huge impact on me too. So I just really kind of noticed that with you.
I got a long ways to go. You know, not that it's like a competition, but I think I'm like, you know, naturally a little bit competitive, at least with myself, and just like to try to, you know, push my hobbies further. So I actually have not done a lot of camping out and like, you know, multiple day excursions. Like I've done a lot of long day trip hikes, you know, 8-10 hours, stuff like that. But next for me, like I really I wanna like camp and like, you know, be out there for days at a time, because I feel like you were saying, you just get to a different space than you can on just those day hikes.
Absolutely. Not that there's not value in the day stuff, but, you know, especially like with what's going on right now, like I think there's a ton of anxiety, obviously, with, you know, a lot of people, you know, with this, like things going on in the world right now with social unrest and, you know, the
Right.
crises that are happening, which of course, like should make us all anxious. You know, I think that if it's not making you anxious, I think I mean, I shouldn't say if it's not making you anxious, you don't care, but like, you know, I think
Right. But
it's making us anxious because we care about it, right? Like, or most, so yeah.
yeah, it's undoubtedly a tough time, and you know, it's like I've more and more like I want to stay informed and keep learning, but then I'm trying a bit to move away from like any sensationalized news and just get my information from like, you know, reliable, educated, just, you know, activists, whatever their discipline is, because I started like, yeah, I had to like delete Twitter off my phone. I still like, you know, go on it sometimes through the web browser, but it's a lot. I don't think our brains are necessarily wired to just, you know, see all that, all these things that outrage us and hurt us and make us want to, you know, help our brothers and sisters and you know, everyone who's going through different struggles and oppression and racism and all the issues that are at stake. But you know, when we're scrolling through it constantly, it's like there's a balance there that, in order for me to be able to show up in a good headspace where I can help and where I can push the fight along and be, you know, on the right side, it's like I also need a break, and that's where nature comes in. That's where breaks from social media happen. So it's, you know, it's all, I don't think anyone knows the perfect answer, but yeah.
There has to be a balance there. You know what I'm saying? And because you're right, it's so easy to get lost in this right now. And like I'm agree with you. Like there's been a couple of days in the last couple, maybe I'd say month, or really since the George Floyd murder, honestly. But there's been a couple of days where, you know, I had obviously like a schedule, like, okay, I'm going to get this done and this done and this done, and, you know, whatever the case is on my list. And half my day is gone because I'm so invested in what's going on. And I'm, you know, like you said, like I'm learning things, I'm reading things, I'm watching things, I'm listening to other people talk. I'm trying to obviously include myself in the conversation because I think it's important to not only, like, obviously we have platforms where we want to, you know, like we want to talk, but obviously on the flip side of that, like, you know, it's important for people like you and me to be allies at this time, right? And like listen and understand even more than, like, I think because like you and I think we have a good grasp on this, but
Yeah.
like just kind of talking to you, I kind of get that sense that you do, and just seeing what you've posted and things like that, kind of following your timeline and things like that. But
Yeah.
there's still a long way for us to even go learning it, right?
Yeah.
But it's like you're right.
For
As
sure.
long as we're on the right side of this, which I think both of us are, that you know that we're doing our part. But you're right. Like we want so badly to create the change that we want to see in the world, but a lot of the change has to be within us. And if we can't change ourselves, grow ourselves, it's really difficult to emulate that within society as well. I think that's super. You kind of see what I'm saying. So like I think you're right. That's where nature for me too kind of comes into it. Like a lot of times I was like, damn man, like, you know, I don't necessarily have time for like a full hike or like but I'm going to go do a trail run in New Hampshire, like just cross over the border and do a trail run
Yep.
for a couple hours. And then I come back, man.
Bro.
Thank God. You know what I'm saying?
And then you can be productive and yeah, and it's like everyone, everyone has their little role. I saw a cool diagram or some sort of chart that showed how there's the writers, there's the people on the front lines, there's a million different things, and everyone can kind of find where they fit in, and that's how they help. But yeah, I agree with you. It's like it's another endless, we talked about in the beginning of the interview how the writing process is an endless thing. With stuff like this, it's an endless iteration to find the best way to show up.
Absolutely. But I obviously do want to commend you because, like I said, I see what you're doing. I see what you're posting. I even saw, you took a break from really promoting Good Grief and you weren't a lot of artists. I won't name them on here just for their own. I don't want to, put them on the spot that way. But a lot of artists that we work with a lot too, and have worked with in the past that felt the exact same way as you, honestly, where they're like, you know what, I'm taking a break from the music side of it right now, and I'm really trying to focus on what's going on right now. It's so important. You're even seeing it in the NBA, like a lot of these NBA players, they don't want to go back and play right now. I think Tatum even released a statement just today, as we're recording this. He said, I honestly didn't feel, I'm not even sure. Like I'm still on the fence about it. Like I don't know if I really even want to play. I'm gonna play, but I'm gonna still continue, do my part with this, with what's going on right now with this the civil injustices and all of it. It's so important at this point now, man. Like it's not to be ignored. It's just but we have to understand it's going to take a toll on our mental health for us to not ignore it. So we have to find ways to cope. And balance. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's and everyone knows in their heart, like, whether they're doing what they can really do, or if they need to pick it up. But it's no judgment. It's like, hopefully all in due time, for everyone. And I think there's definitely an immediacy to it all. There needs to be actionable change every single day, but then from that more what exactly is my role standpoint, I think that's where you can kind of iterate a little and figure out how to show up.
Absolutely. And whatever sustainable change we can create, that for it to be sustainable, that might take some time. It's not going to be the easy fix that we all want, you know what I mean? And because if anything easy, sometimes it's not, is it worth it if it comes so easy? You know what I'm saying? So it's really it's difficult. And obviously, like you said, we're like, our hearts are with our Black brothers and sisters that are going through this, and really all minorities that are having this and dealing with this right now. And it's really important for us to kind of, like you said, to come together. And I'm glad that it's just good to talk to other people that are trying to do as much as they can and do their part. But like I said, I keep reiterating this, and not to beat the dead horse, but it's have to be mindful of our own mental health with this. We can't get too out of hand with it. You know what I mean? Because I'm even seeing some people that I friends and family that are so invested in it, where it seems like that's all they're doing is just posting and posting and posting and posting and posting. And I worry about some of those people. You know what I mean? That their inability to a little bit. You know what I mean? That's not selfish to separate from that for a little while. It's not.
Yeah, totally. I think of that airplane oxygen mask analogy a lot, where you have to grab it first and then
help others.
Help others. Yeah. So it's geez, man. I mean, I definitely don't have all the answers, but
I wish we did, but you know, you're right. We don't, and it's going to take time. But as long, like you
For
said,
sure.
as long as we're winning these little battles, and as long as we're creating positive shit daily, and that we keep the dialogue going, that's I think the most important thing right now. Keep that dialogue going. If this is for anybody listening right now, that's a content creator, or if you're as small as just an everyday human being, like like you said, I think you brought up a very profound point here. It's like, what can you do on a daily basis to change these things? And it can just be something as simple as, hey, like finding Black owned businesses in your community and supporting them. That's
yeah, that's it, right?
Right.
Like,
Because a lot of these things aren't as hard as they might seem. Because I know a lot of people that, and I talked about this on one of our last podcasts where with more of the J. Cole No Name situation, and how Cole and I actually had a really amazing conversation with Taha, who's an artist we've talked to already.
Yep.
I agree with some of the things he brought up a point where he was like, for Cole needs to say something eventually because he's a voice. And I agree with that 100%. But we have to keep in mind though that there are some people that might not be comfortable voicing it right now. They'd maybe rather just listen and learn, and that's okay. But I do agree though, there is going to come to a point where we listen and learn. Okay, we can do that only for so long. Now there needs to be action. Has to be action. So
100%. Yeah, it's I think I just love to see, like, I think I saw a post that was saying that Black Lives Matter is like the biggest, or this current phase of it is the biggest movement ever in recorded history.
Good.
So,
and good thing.
It's happening, but it'll keep unfolding.
Yeah, I think we're finally in the position now where it's like, it's come to a head, and it's here. There's no running from it anymore. We can only go forward though, and and like I said, we need to just continue to like keep the dialogue going. Like, and I'm glad that we were able to touch base on it today too. And like I said, obviously, again, commend you for everything that you've been posting. I think the biggest thing, and the last thing I'll kind of mention with this section of this episode is, I think that it's important to be mindful of what we're posting. And like you said, I always think of it in terms of, and what I'm posting right now, is this based in fact or is it based in opinion? And while I think our opinions are valid and important, we should hear them. I think it's much more important to be posting and talking about factual things versus
I think so too. And I think especially for white people, it's like you're gonna mess up. You just are, especially if you grew up in the suburbs and you didn't grow up around a lot of minorities or whatever it may be. If you had any sort of sheltered existence, you're going to mess up even if you're trying to help sometimes. And so I think a hard part of it is like people don't want to sometimes admit they're wrong, and they don't want to feel embarrassed, but it's clearly bigger than all that. So it's like, it's just about or part of it is just leaving the ego at the door. And then, if you mess up, you got to be humble about it, and you got to admit it, and you just got to correct course. And it's, that's kind of a stoic way to look at it, but,
it's just, like you said, we have to grow, and we have to grow positively, or else, you know what I mean? Like, just, one mistake. That's why this cancel culture is just really tough right now, because it's like, I think people, like you're saying, people are afraid because they don't want to be quote unquote canceled, whether or not it's even on the scale of like, if you're an artist or a podcaster or whoever, like, and you don't want to be canceled quote unquote by your fans, or it's like, you don't want to be canceled by your friends or in your family. So it's, you said, it's a slippery slope, but it's, we have to, like you said, we have to all leave our ego at the door and be a little bit more mindful of how we move, and if we make a mistake,
Yeah.
and move forward and right that wrong and continue it in a productive way. I think that's you're absolutely right.
And if you could royally F up in something you said, even if it's not based in hate or intolerance, just because that can happen. But I think a majority of the time where you're going to get, canceled is if you're speaking from a place of hate and intolerance. If you have love behind what you're saying and you really feel you do, you still might be wrong or you still might get a fact wrong or whatever it is. But, I think it's a lot less likely that you'd have the hammer come down on you like that if you're really trying to be an ally and make sense of it. So, it's a lot of self-education though.
Excellent point. And I think the moral of this too, it's like, this is important. Continue, everybody that's listening to this, right? No matter who you are, continue the conversation, continue the dialogue, continue to talk about it, but try to don't get too wrapped up in it. Find an outlet that you can kind of grasp onto to sort of, help your own mental health out with this, because we're all we're in a difficult time with so many different things happening right now, but we have to just, we have to all on a personal level figure out a way. I mean, obviously you and I have nature. That's like a thing that we do. And music, I think, is also part of that as well for both of us, but that doesn't have to be it for other people. But I'm just saying, like, find your thing that help you ease your mental health. And I think that is something that's not being talked about, I don't think, as enough. So
I agree. And yeah, I have a friend that is super busy, and doing a lot of things, and he'll just go fish when he can, and that's meditative to him. And it's even as simple as just because not everyone has maybe the luxury to do whatever it is, maybe you go out and camp, but even if you can just find grass and put your feet in it, ground yourself. Probably sounds a little, a little hippie-ish, but whatever it is, even if it's just a walk through the city, it's whatever, whatever it is for you.
100%.
Actually, though, I'm curious because I know you've been interviewing a lot of different artists and just immersed in the scene. Who right now for you is maybe top 3, top 5, who are your favorites to listen to right now out of Boston, any genre?
He's flipping it on me. I like it. He's flipping it on me. He's interviewing me. Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. That's a good question. So at this very moment in time, people know, I mess with Washi, I mess with Marcel Stefan, I mess with Zafir, I mess with the Van Buren camp. Those are my boy, especially more Washi, Zafir, Marcel, Kamai, and Dolo, Taha. Those are my boys. Those are the guys. I'm probably leaving people out, but right now, who I'm really listening to, Heath 240, and again, he's kind of in our camp. Heath 240, bro. I'm telling you, he's next.
Yeah.
He's a guy. Yeah.
Okay. And he's from
Roxbury.
From here, or living here?
Roxbury.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So he's a guy, definitely 1,000%. The other guy that I think is just uber talented and really he's young and he's still figuring it out, but he is just, like I said, just so talented. And you can just tell, once he figures out fully what his sound is, he's going to pop. Is Hex from Kingston. He's another guy that you really, if you haven't checked him out, he's another.
Yeah, I will. So yeah, I love how you dive deep into it, so it's pretty cool.
I am deep into it. And then the last one, I'm actually gonna go with a female rapper who is really kind of popping off for me right now, is Vintage Lee. She's very
I'm gonna name another female rapper or singer rapper, Neems. Pretty sure it's Neemz. She has one single on Spotify, but it's going crazy right now. It's called "Running Through the City."
Where's she from? She from?
I think she's from around, definitely Mass. But that is the most infectious song. Like, I feel like it would fit on your podcast possibly.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I was like, it was real refreshing.
Okay, I'm gonna add that right now and just make sure that gets on a playlist at some point or whatever. Oh yeah, Neemz. Okay, here she is, running through.
Yeah, she's great. Running through the city.
Yeah, but I'm big on Lee right now because I love Tierra Whack, and I think there's definitely some similarity between the two of them and just kind of their cadence and how they do their delivery. So
yeah, it's great. It's funny. I was riding around with my friends when I was in Providence for the 4th, and was playing only Boston music, or Brockton, Boston, Massachusetts music. Like, I had on like St. Leor, then I had on this Neem song, and then had on like some whatever it is, Ed Bloom. And it was funny because I was like, there's enough music in the city to just take a ride and be listening to Massachusetts.
Dude, this is why we pivoted more towards this, because really putting on for the Boston music scene and really just like I said, like you saying, the Massachusetts music scene in general, because there's so much talent here, and like it's almost overwhelming because I never really immersed myself into it until fairly recently, right? Like I said, and it's been one of those things for me where it's like I feel like I learn like I said, Neemz, like now that's a new one that I just learned this week. Like every week I'm learning about a new person or a new artist that I haven't heard right now yet. And even other genres too. Like I know I mentioned it way earlier in the beginning of the show, but Ripe, they're like a funk band, indie funk band that you gotta check out too. They're really cool. I believe most of them are from the South Shore, but they all met, I want to say, at Berkeley School, at Berkeley. I'm not 100% sure, but they're awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's
so much.
Yeah, it's great. And I haven't been living in the city that long. Like, I don't consider myself a Boston artist necessarily, but more of a artist living in Boston and a Massachusetts artist. And it's just exciting. It's just exciting because it's not slowing down. It's only speeding up.
Yeah, you know what? And I think I'm happy. Like a lot of, we've made so many awesome connections, and we have now like a little network behind us. And I don't know, not even that little. It's good size now. But the problem about it too is like it's so just like you said, encouraging, and it feels like we're a part of something a lot bigger. There's this movement in the state, right? I think a state of Massachusetts right now. This music, like. It's a state that hasn't really gotten a lot of exposure on a national level, and that's really our goal. We want to, like, in an ideal world, we would want to be the plug for the whole world, like the whole, not only the country but the whole world, for hey, like this is what got going on. Like we got it right now. You know what I mean? Like we're next. That's how I feel that way. And there's a lot of different kinds of music, right? Like I know you're rooted in hip hop, but like we talked about it before, like you give a lot more other types of sounds than just hip hop. So that's why, and someone like you and the Van Buren camp, right? Totally different sounds, but still hip hop. But so cool. Like that's just an example, but it's dope, man.
Yeah, and I think Turntable caught my eyes and ears because I like how you stuck to like what you took the teacher part of it, and like it's just very it's you. And I don't know the other guys on the team, but you can just tell it's coming from like a place of being a music lover, a fan, even like a hip hop head, like. And so immediately, like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna send my EP to these guys. They seem cool, and I was listening to it, and yeah, it's good stuff, man.
No, I was so excited. Like you actually, it's funny. Like guys like you, Taha was another guy I mentioned him a little earlier. Like he's another guy. Like you guys both sent me your stuff. And we get a lot of submissions. Like a lot of people send us their stuff. And but the ones that really stick out to me are the people that articulate a legitimate, like, or something legitimate that's a little like more than just, yo, here's my new track, like bump it, or like let me know what you think. You sent me like you were like, hi, my name is Maeko, like I'm from the Boston area, like I have this EP coming out soon, like here's my single Rat. Like I would love if you would like to check it out, like like you actually gave like a legitimate like response, and like in a very eloquent, mature way. And so that, like, obviously I said this to Taha too when he came on the show too. I was just like, dude, what first caught my eye really was your email. And because for me personally, as an English teacher, that's something hard with my kids. I'm like, guys, you have to send professional emails with everything you do, because you'll stand out. Just be like, hey, here's my new song, listen to it, thanks. Like,
no, exactly, man. That's funny.
Yeah. So like I said, it comes from, we do in a sense, like we want to educate. Not only, it's funny, man, because one of my producers, all right, Sam, he our lead producer, Sam, he's been sharing lately, especially he's been sharing all of it with like his crew of friends, and
cool.
They're blown away. They're like, this guy's from Massachusetts, this girl's from Massachusetts, that guy's from Massachusetts, this big Massachusetts. Like,
you never know
who was here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I almost feel like we want to not only educate like you say, we have to start within ourselves. We want to educate massive freaking Massachusetts. Like, hey, yo, we have all this in our backyard. Like, support these people. You know what I mean? Like, so they all don't leave like they traditionally all do.
Right. It's common. I think a lot of people are leaving with the goal of coming back now, or if they have left, they're supporting behind the scenes and building things over on this side. So that's amazing to see too. It's whereas in the past it might have just been you go to LA and you go to New York, and that's kind of the only way you do it. Maybe you go to Atlanta. I think people are kind of starting to think like, what's the infrastructure? How do we build it? How do we sustain it? Stuff like that.
I think we're like at the forefront and in the beginning stages, the infancy stages, but I think it's now the wheels are turning here. And I think we're in the stages of that happening. I mean, hey man, that's the goal, dude. It's like, that's really our goal right now is to just keep pushing, as many artists as we possibly can and showing not only Massachusetts, but whoever will listen to us. this is what's coming out of Massachusetts. And man, and like I've just it does come from a place of passion for us personally. Like for me, like I've always been a huge fan of music. I mean, I have a story. I'm not even gonna, I'm not gonna waste my time talking about it here. A lot of our listeners know it, and but I'm happy that we are now kind of a respected entity within the Massachusetts music scene. I think we do important work, and I want to continue to do important work for all of you guys. And I think it's super, it's really vital.
Appreciate it.
Dude, it's my pleasure, honestly. Like you guys, I listen to you guys more than I do some of the mainstream stuff these days. Speaking of which, last question. First of all, you've been, like I said, you've been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for this whole, all of this, all the whole episode was just an absolute blast. Anybody that's made it through this far, I'm sure you have a lot to take away from this episode, and we thank Maeko so much for being here. My question.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. My last question I ask everybody that comes on this show.
I wonder what this is.
Yeah. I wonder what, right? It's not as much of a surprise anymore. Like I was telling you a little earlier, like before we recorded, like I threw it in on the pre-notes because I was just like, it's cat's out of the bag. Yeah. We're getting a lot of good feedback with it. So it's fun. It's a cool little thing. So dream song. Okay. You can make a song with any artist, dead or alive. Okay. And I'll structure it for you. You get a producer or like someone to do, or like you can pick a couple of different, like some people cheat and they do like a couple of different like types of instrumentation from different people, you know what I mean? Like if you want Questlove
Yeah.
drop, you know,
Yeah.
melody from Pharrell or what, I don't know, whatever you want. So you get one track, you get somebody to do the production. Okay. You get a verse, you get two guest verses, and you get a hook. Who's on that song? Go.
Okay. Production, I want guitar from Tom Misch.
I freaking love Tom Misch, dude. He's the shit.
That's great. Oh my gosh,
great. His new album is awesome, by the way. I'm sure you've heard it.
Oh. Yeah, actually, my first mixtape, I only put it on SoundCloud, so I just took a bunch of people's beats. I wasn't gaining money from it anyway, so I just credited them, you know, put it up for free, and he was a couple of the beats. So
South of the River, bro, on his what's that
album?
Yeah. South of the River, bro. Yeah. That song is my shit. I love that song.
I'm glad you like him. That's funny. So it'll be, and then I think just like for the rest of the production, whatever, you know, beats, pads, whatever it is. I like Dev Hynes from Blood Orange.
Yes.
And I think they could do some cool stuff. I think both from the UK too.
Eclectic. Yeah. It would be up your wheelhouse. Yep. All right. I like where this is going. Continue.
Yeah. And so and now it's two verses and a hook, right?
Verses and a hook. You get one of the making like a traditional song, like 3 verses, the hook, all that shit. So you get a verse, cool. 2 guest verses and a guest hook.
Cool. Oh, by the way, I want to put Owen, who is my producer back here. I want to have him do the drums, maybe in conjunction with Dev Hynes. But yeah, we've been making some good stuff. I'll keep it local for the hook too. I want Sleeping Bella on the hook.
Sleeping Bella.
Yeah, check her music out. She's great. She's an amazing singer. What's that?
I said you're giving me some homework, bro.
Yeah, she's great. And then for the verses, I'll go. I want a verse. I don't think I can not say Kendrick. You got a Kendrick verse. I'll pay the millions of dollars for it. And then the other one, I'd like a verse from Mavi.
Choice.
Yeah, have you heard it?
I have.
Yeah.
I don't know like a ton of his stuff, but I know who he is. I've heard him, but I couldn't like tell you a song. Put it that way.
Right. And I'll add in one more thing because now we're just going balls to the wall. I think if there's a way to get Neil Young on there with some harmonica, I don't know what the hell this song is gonna sound like, but if that can work, I want that.
Sound like whatever the heck you want.
That's it. Yeah, a couple of local people, and then some dream artists.
Wow. We always talk about this all the time. We're like, maybe someday we put all this out into the universe, right? Like we'll make like a Turntable Teachers album, and you guys will all be able to create all these songs and just put them out. But
cool, man. Manifest it.
Yeah, we're gonna try to manifest it, man. You know, we got a lot of things up here in the works that and conversation out here we want to do. So yeah, hey, we'll see. Maybe someday.
Yeah.
But that sounds like a hell of a song, dude. I don't know. I would be into it because there's a lot of variety there, a lot of mixing. Like you said, I don't know how it would blend, but we'd figure it out.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Maeko.
All right.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Great. I said this flew by. Yeah, it was a great combo.
I know. These things usually do. It seriously does. So, man, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for for tuning in.
Yeah.
Episode.
Thanks, everyone, for
Make sure
watching.
you guys, absolutely. Make sure you guys go follow Maeko on Instagram at Maeko Says, right? Is that?
Yep. MAKOSAYS.
Everything will be linked in the description. Good Grief, the EP, is linked in the description of this episode. So make sure you definitely go check out that on Spotify, Apple. It's out on all streaming services. And obviously, if you're a fan of Maeko and you're just kind of, getting turned on to us, make sure you check out, all of our past guest speaker episodes and, subscribe to us on your podcast streaming service of choice. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Turntable Teachers.
Do it up.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for being here, Maeko. This is Maeko.
Yeah.
With the Turntable Teachers, and class is dismissed.
Turn,